window at the bottom. If you just click on yourself, you can like take yourself in and out.
A word.
Yeah. You have the control over that. All of us can do that to anybody else.
Welcome. We're live, fellas. For better or for worse, I hit the button. So, anyways, welcome to this edition of Redspin Sports. Go, James on the move, man. Man on the move. He's got things to do. So, anyways, yeah, I got the Yankees, Huskies. I don't know why I got the Huskies thing on. Got this from a friend or whatever, but I think it's kind of dope. They used to have Nike gear, but I think they're Adidas now or something. I always liked it a little bit, so figure rock it. And I wore the Yankees beanie for you tonight. Last week was crossing the line a little bit. All these owners, the Yankees. I know they're the top of the pedestal, whatever. But there's no owners are owners, whatever. So yeah, we're gonna rock the Yankee beanie tonight. But we got Big Game James. What's going on down in Duval these days?
Not much, man. Just everybody's in this honeymoon phase with Urban Meyer, and that's basically what my life consists of. Being asked what do I think of Urban Meyer and how do I feel, and I'm like.
So what do you think? What do you think, Urban? What do you think, Urban Meyer?
I mean, he ain't did nothing. I told people, and I think anybody who listens to me on Twitter or listens to the Sports Den knows there's one thing that I'm very adamant about. And it's not even because of the school that he went to, because once they go pro, I understand you got to change that. I play with Gators, and I know a lot of Gators, but I hate Taven Bryant with passion. Like, I don't know it's not that he did anything personally to me, but I just don't like him because I believe he's a thief and he's stealing money. And I don't even know. It doesn't even I can't even wrap my mind around why he was picked.
It's just so unbelievable. It's so unbelievable. It's just beyond. I mean, I remember that guy, people were comparing him to J.J. Watt or something. Like, they called him, Baby Watt or something at Florida because he was country strong from Wyoming. Yeah, this is a guy who was drafted before Lamar Jackson, mind you, right, in the 2018 draft. A pathetic, defensive tackle and for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But nonetheless, it's just he's better picked than Lamar Jackson. It makes a lot of sense.
I was if Urban wants to impress me, the first decision that he'll make is just come in and just call Taven up, and Taven will know why he was called to the room, because he knows it. I mean, he just doesn't know when. But long story short, Urban's a winner. We'll see. He's won in college. He's made for interesting radio with Chris Doyle hire, and a couple other things, which I'm unapologetically pro-black, but I'm not pro-black to the point where I don't make sense, and I don't mean disrespect to anybody else. I understand how the world goes, and I understand how America is. The only thing more American than apple pie is a winner, and you can really get away with anything if you're good enough in America. Except for you can't talk about Jewish people unless you're like Nick. Nick Cannon might be the only person that's ever talked about a Jewish person and lived in in his career flourish. But I got to tell people I'm not dumb enough to say anything negative about that.
Well, what we don't like, is the idea.
I think Chris Doyle is really, really good at his job, and I was like, I was trying to find. I wasn't trying to explain it away. I was just trying to find, let me see. He said the N-word. I just need to see the smoking gun. I couldn't see the smoking gun, but I did notice, he got 50 complaints, and nobody came to his defense. So that lets me know that he's a terrible person. So maybe he is a bad guy. Yeah,
James Daniels from the Bears, I thought had some of those damning comments about him. I mean, he just was straight. It's you're not talking about someone who's just disgruntled, didn't do well, and just wanting to talk shit. I mean, he was the offensive guard for the Bears, and he pretty much laid it all out there. It was just constantly demeaning stuff. Kind of reminded me the Mark Mangino stuff at Kansas, where they got him fired, where he was telling guys, "I'm gonna send you back to St. Louis. You go get shot with your homies." That kind of. Mike, you remember that?
It's borderline. It really, it's really bad, but at worst, it's unprofessional. It's definitely not how you should talk to an individual that you're supposed to care about. But I work with a lot of people I don't like, and I don't necessarily care for me. I just care if you do your job for the most part. Like, and I like knowing where people stand. Like the worst type of racist to me is the one that's it's a passive one. Like if I know that, you know, you know, some of it's not like I can't swim. Like if he would have told me I need to be on the crew team, oh yeah, you can't swim, I would have been like, you know what, I would want to be upset, but like he's right, I can't swim. So like, you know, it didn't make any sense on the pro side. But that's like Urban. Urban's gonna hire people who have broken, you know, a minimum of 6 of the 10 commandments. That's what he did at Florida. And if you can't deal with that, then don't hire Urban Meyer.
I mean,
none of this surprises me. I'm shocked nobody's gone to jail yet.
Go ahead, Mike.
I think it's two things. I think, especially like growing up the time when we grew up, I know I'm like 5-6 years behind you, big game, and I think I was a year behind Nate. And I played under like Sullivan, and like Sullivan didn't say anything that was like that, but like, you had coaches who said stuff that was questionable. You know what I'm saying? Like all my coaches was like, I had like one black coach. He was the running backs coach, Coach John Mike. And he would make jokes that like, I guess if it came out, you know what I'm saying, you would consider it controversial. You know what I'm saying? So that was just a culture that a lot of us like kind of was like raised in, and hearing coaches kind of like talk how they want to talk. And it is kind of interesting seeing kind of like the new age standards of, because I feel like I've heard from my coaches and in life every bad thing you could say. I remember going when I played for Weber for that semester. I had like a teammate, Italian dude, who just was trying to fuck with me and saying some racist stuff. I didn't punch him, but I knew in practice. You know what I'm saying? You got to him, but he thought he was joking. I think nowadays, I mean, I'm sure that still happens, but I think I don't know, I feel like culture is changing to such an extent that like, it's affecting everything, including sports. Especially with something like Chris Dorr. Like I'm sure everything he said was within the bounds of everything that anyone, especially black players, have heard. You know what I'm saying? But I guess nowadays in 2021, especially with the rise of like the George Floyd stuff last year and all these like corporations and companies trying to be like, oh, we diverse and we trying to not put out some racist imagery. I feel like it's interesting seeing that clash of culture, you know what I'm saying, and how that's shifting everything and how it's even affecting football. Because years ago Chris Dorr could easily have gotten a job. They paid him $1 million to leave. That's crazy to me. And like Big Game James said, he had nobody. I'm just surprised that he had nobody who came out and was like, "Oh, I know him. He cool. He not. You know what I'm saying? Nobody. None of his players. Coached there for a long time. But I think on that point, I mean, that's just is what it is. And even on the Urban Meyer tip, I mean, yeah, I'm a Jags fan, so I was, I saw people tweeting me about it, the Chris Dorr shit, like, oh yeah, you about Black Lives Matter and shit. Well, why you ain't saying nothing? I'm like, I mean, I ain't hiding. So
yeah. Hey, so I got something. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh no, I just got to get one. I got to get one Urban Meyer jab in there as the only native Michigander on here, and I just got to say that you know that you can't cry to a selection committee just to get into the playoffs, right? Like you can't just cry,
except when it works, right? Yeah,
but I'm just saying the NFL doesn't have. That's all I'm saying.
Right?
Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
I don't like. I'm happy for you guys. I'm happy for your team.
Well, you realize though that James is not like a partisan though. He's a sports personality host in the town who's done it like he's not like a fan. So it's like to him, it's like he's annoyed that he's got to like talk about this shit all the time. Actually, that. I mean, I don't mean to speak for James, but I think I accurately summarized.
It annoys me to cover them. Like they suck. Like it's bad. Like when the Florida State was good and I was on radio. If the Jags sucked, I was in heaven. I was dope. And when I gotta watch bad football on Saturday and I have to watch bad football on Sunday,
Oh,
it doesn't make it enjoyable for me.
Right. That's
So,
part
like,
of your job. At literally
I
part of
hope
your
that they're
job
good.
watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't turn the channel because
And
then
I have to hear stupid people, and the stupid people are arguing with me about stuff that they never lived, and I'm like, yo, like you think I want to talk bad about these people for two?
Yo.
You know how old that gets for 2 hours a day, like for 5-6 years, and talk about how bad somebody is. You know how creative you got to be. Like I want to be positive, but these other guys are fans.
Yeah.
I get where they're coming from. I don't care. I just don't want to watch bad football.
Right.
And so if Urban, but I do say this: 2017, when they were good, it was like the best. Like it was great here in Jacksonville. Money flowed. We had no problem with advertisers. We had no problem with anything. And then they went right back to sucking in. It was just like, oh man, I got to deal with this.
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you about something because we I don't know with all this going on right now with the But damn, what the hell? I lost my train of thought for a second. But look, I'll come back to that. What I wanted to hit on real quick. No, I remember what it was. I apologize. All right. It's about fans, man. And last night I was on This Is Revolution podcast out in the West Coast with Matt Leck from who's been with the Michael Brooks show, is now with the Majority Report with Sam Cedar. And we were talking about like sport and sporting gentrification and how that's pushed like a lot of athletes from the hood that kind of like were those like make it out type athletes, because of the IMGs and the specialization of things and of different sporting and training and all that, and how expensive, about that, how expensive that is, another barrier for guys that come from low income backgrounds. We were talking about how that's had a huge effect on making the game kind of, change its class dimensions. But also talking about fan stuff and like, having played at Florida State like you did. And then, for me, even though injuries marred my time at South Carolina, then Florida State, just seeing the way, like, you go to fan day, players love it. For the most part, a lot of guys. I mean, just tell me if you sense if this feels right to you or accurately summarizes it. But my sense is that a lot of players love the atmosphere. They love the energy. They love the fans creating that. But in terms of like relating to a lot of the fans that are like, 50, 60-year-old white guy kind of goofy dudes who got a fanny pack chasing around for like an autograph at the fan day, don't you feel like there's like an alienation kind of where it's sort of like dudes are like, yo, man, I mean, I love this atmosphere. This is dope. But some of these cats are weird, man. Weird as fuck, basically. I don't know what your thought is about fans and shit, man.
I deal with it every day. Like, the crazy thing is that you got to like that's part of the branding, especially if you want to do something. But like, you gotta, shoot, how to say this? Fan is short for fanatic. Mm-hmm. So like that's what they are. But like, and I come from a perspective now, having done it, having been a young fan of just sports in general, and then having been, grown up in the inner city, I talk about things from, a variety of different perspectives. And I always tell people, first and foremost, don't get it twisted. Like, you could get messed up. My athletic career allowed me to go to get an education, be around some people that allowed me to be in a tax bracket that's nowhere near close to what I grew up in. But that aggressiveness that allowed me to be able to get pulled out of that is still there. And you're not going to talk to me any kind of way. And I think fans look at sports as the pro level, as the top of the top. So when you talk about gentrification, when I think of gentrification, I think of a bunch of white kids that go to Marcy Projects that are putting up, coffee shops, but don't understand that, 20 years ago, Marcy Projects up in New York was one of the worst places that you grew up in.
Yeah, in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy,
down the street. But you look at the fact that you're there and that you're rich now, that everybody else is around you is that way. And that's just not the case. Like, you got to understand your environment and your surroundings. So I think that's the hardest part, is when you're a 17 to 19-year-old coming into a world that's nothing like what you were accustomed to. And these people believe that all of a sudden magic fairy dust sprinkled on you and on the world, and you're supposed to just be able to adjust to the acclimation period. Now, when you're able to do it 3 to 4 years, it works out tremendously well. When I think about guys like, Leon Washington from Jacksonville, and Leon Washington was night and day different from the 19. I think he came in 19. The 19-year-old that he was when he graduated.
And y'all were together for 4 years,
17,
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And James blocked for him. They played
would
from
rob
02
me right
to 05. Yeah.
Yeah, I would rob me right now if I was 17. It's just a big difference between where I've grown.
James got bougie.
No, man, yeah, dude. I'm a cheese board eating, Starbucks $5, $6 coffee drinking dude that, against dudes in my same bracket, I'm good, but I'm nowhere near the 17-year-old that was looking to eat 2 times a day, that was hungry to get out. So I mean, it's just like when I went to college, I had never taken protein because it was too expensive, and I was afraid of it because I didn't know what it would do. So like that was the first time I ate 5 to 6 meals a day, and people were like, "How did you put on weight?" I was like, "I'm eating. I ain't never ate before."
Turn you into a beast before you know it. Yeah.
Yeah. And those are the things that I think a lot of people you can't relate, but they can relate to you being good in sport. Yeah. And then you'll hear, and then when it gets weird is when people are like, "Oh, well, you weren't that good." Like, well, dude, just 5 seconds ago you were praising me. I say something like, I'm voting for Joe Biden or I'm voting for Donald Trump, and now all of a sudden I'm the worst person in the world, and I just need that's where it gets really weird is when people realize that you're more than just speed and aggressiveness, that you're just like them, except for you were born with an ability that made you gifted, and they're born with nothing. God didn't bless them with anything that separated them. And most people are jealous of that, and they live through you, but when they realize that, this person is more than just a genetic trait, then they're like, "Oh, well, shut up the ball." And that's where I think where it really gets disrespectful. And Twitter give everybody social media, I say this all the time. Everybody doesn't deserve a platform. Everybody has freedom of speech, but doesn't give you freedom of consequences. I'm not the government. If I put my hands on you, that's because I feel like putting my hands on you. Like I can't prevent you, but I think people have been given this platform of social media where you can say something and people give you praise, or they denigrate you, and you haven't been trained nor have you earned that. And I think that's really where that's gentrifying another spot. But
it gets into that is wild. I mean, you talk about how the discourse. I mean, then there's all these in a whole other lane. There's like the whole debate about big tech and who has, and is it? I mean, how good is it for like Silicon Valley giants to get to the side? Who has that platform and who doesn't? And are they just trying to kind of like push out dissident voices? But I think we're talking. But I feel what you're saying. You're talking about the way this stuff affects people and like it affects people's psychology. I think there's like no doubt that like it messes with some people's minds. Like there's no way. I mean, there's no way around it. But I wanted to get in real quick when I was talking about the gentrification of sport. Well, I was, I remember you used to work with, with Kes McCorvey at Titus, and did like, working out guys, and the training business and like the specialization of football, right, has become such a thing. We were talking a lot. There's this Forbes article about using sports to get out of poverty doesn't work when you have to be rich to play it. And it's all about how in the last 10, 20 years with the rise of so many different workout, with the rise of so many different workout places and stuff that are very cost prohibitive for kids that are from like low income backgrounds, that we're seeing less and less of kids like making it out actually, from poverty, because it's like, unless they get somebody that kind of latches onto them, helps them out. At 9 o'clock, by the way, we got Coach Will from, out in Oakland, California. He coached Dame Lillard in high school, and they get help with from him actually. What they're doing, he's going to talk a little bit more about this too. But the way in which unless you get basically a sponsor or someone that's like going to help get you on the right AAU team, funnel you into the right sort of shoe company. I mean, you see it right now with the Kansas Adidas sort of thing that's going down. But it's getting more and more like middle class, like the college sports ranks. Because I think a lot of it, and it's not overwhelming, but it's just incrementally. And I think that you're seeing, like, even with gentrification, think about it. People get pushed out of Oakland, right? Now they're out in Antioch. And there's a whole documentary I watched recently where farther out in the East Bay, that's actually Maurice Jones-Drew's hometown. They're becoming much more black. Some of the suburbs of Chicago are too, with gentrification and whatnot. So you're seeing, different dynamics where like what used to be kind of like more white places becoming more black, but you're also seeing, at the big college level, I feel like a larger number of kids from like, wealthier backgrounds that are taking more Stollies up to maybe when you were playing or back in the 90s. And I'm wondering if you think that, some of the financial barriers that put up, like if you're not, having your parents, being able to pay for you to train, be able to pay for you to do a lot of these things, if that's leading to like across the board, like maybe decline in kids, quote, making it out of poverty in football as much as kids do.
I think it's yes and no, right? So there are guys who have extreme poverty, but typically those guys who come from like those extreme situations don't have the time to play sports. They got to work. They got to do other things. But when you think about the typical guy that comes out of the hood, I would argue that it's more of a allocation of resources and a knowledge base than it is a lack of, that is a barrier. And what I mean by that is this. So I just got into sneakers 4 years ago. And part of it was because let me rephrase it, because I always like Air Force Ones and I like Reeboks, but that's just how I grew up. Those were the popular things that was really popular when I was coming out of high school, and my mom wouldn't let me get them. But my mother, I told my mother, I don't want anything for my birthday. My birthday's in the summer. I said, I don't want anything for my birthday. All I want you to do is pay for me to go to Bobby Bowden football camp. And I worked my behind off with a high school coach, and I did everything in my power, what I knew. And that paid off. That was a $500 investment for a 5-day camp where I showed out, and I ended up, getting recruited by Florida State. Now, there's some other things in my story where I didn't do what I was supposed to do, but it worked out in the end. I say that to say this, is that right now we're getting stimulus packages. We're getting 1,400 people are getting. People are getting like 1,400 kids. They're getting all these different things. You're seeing people buy shoes. You're seeing people buy a lot of other stuff. You're seeing people put money back into the economy, but not into themselves. Athleticism is no different than a bank account. Like, it's no different than training. Like, it doesn't cost. Like, yeah, for me now, if you can afford it, I'm gonna hit you over the head. If you want one-on-one training, it's gonna be like $125 to $150. But that's to get me to get out of bed for one-on-one training. When I was with Titus, you're talking about $20 a session, 2 to 3 days a week. You can take that and you can replicate what you learn, and you keep doing it. There's every year in the hood, there's sports camps. Everybody has a sports camp. Like, I joke now, what I do in my nonprofit, to do my sports camp, you have to do my coding camp. I joke, the last thing the hood needs is another sports camp. So you have these things that you have access to get you better. It's just, what are you doing? Do you really need another pair of Jordans? Or could you take that $400 that you're going to get to have your kid fly and invest in them on a small level? And it's hard to overcome the $2,000 kid, but that $300 seed with that $2,000 million work ethic that kid has cannot be replicated. Because the one thing I do know that I joke about, me only eating 2 times a day, the hunger that I had could not be outworked by any dollar amount. So I think that's one thing we gotta look at. And then 2, it's about pooling resources. Miami Booker T. Washington is just as profitable of a school as IMG. It's an inner city school, but that community rallies around him.
But what's with Booker T? How did they kind of? It's a good example. I don't mean to cut you off. I just was curious because they're a school that's gotten that. They're on ESPN, right? They get those games played. Like, what are some of the mechanisms they did? Because what I'm really speaking to is like what you see in this Forbes article. It talks about data that revealed that in Division I sports, steep drop-off and first generation, college students in major D1 sports from 2010 to 2015, and it was most dramatic in like men's basketball even. So that's sort of like what I was speaking to. It's like,
now, it's not just a money thing though. It's like now you got guys who know, even you weren't. There's no offense, not but just injuries prevented your career from going high. But if you have a son, you know what it took to get to South Carolina. So now you can pour into your son and you know where to look at. It's different than my mom was a single mother who didn't even know I was good in sports. So many people from that, like it was still people rediscovering and doing all these other things. So, but to go to it, Booker T. Washington, when their guys make it, they put into them a firm sense of community. Like, I don't need you to give all the money, but I need you to give something. To go back and Jackson. So I know Kevin, Coach Sullivan very well here at Andrew Jackson. He's back as the AD. He had guys that would leave. He would say simple stuff like, "Yo, we need a lawnmower. That's $20,000. Okay, coach, I got you." I'm not gonna say name, but like he had guys who would give him money or give back to the program, and his heart was for the program. So it was cats that was going to JUCO that ain't never been out of the city. So he's paying for kids to get because I remember he was like, "Yeah, I'm over here. I'm buying an airplane ticket for this kid that say he wants to go to Kansas City." I mean, goes to Kansas to junior college, but he ain't never been out of the state. So how you gonna go somewhere you don't even know what it's like? So he was setting up trips. So those are things like, but the community would get behind it. So every time they go spend like they may not be able to give $150 for a booster thing, but they give $5 a game. And if you got 10,000 people in your stadium, everybody's giving $5. That stuff adds up over time, and you're able to, mix and match. Now, on top of your former guys coming back, I think that helps them compete to a level with the IMG, which IMG is able to have the technology. It's within reason. Like my son will have more resources than a lot of other people's kids, but that's just because of you can't help the zip code that you're born in. But I think sometimes that's what we really gotta look at. It's a lot more to it than just the data, but like also what's coming back to now into fruition is there's so many former college guys that are coaching. Like the guys who coached me, I don't think a soul played in college. But now
that's
it's
true,
hard.
man.
You'll be hard pressed to go anywhere around here with guys who have an elite. So now film breakdown, the knowledge that's being disseminated on the field, it's a lot to it, and I don't want to. I still think it's an event. I ain't gonna Jason Whitlock it, where Jason Whitlock said the dumbest
Oh,
thing
come
I've ever
on,
heard in
don't do
my life.
me
Where he
like
said
that.
LeBron James was born he said LeBron was born with an advantage because he came from a single parent, because he came from poverty and all
That
that.
is shots and all those
malnourished too. But what I will say, but what I will say is that there's there is things that we can do if you put your kid, like, shoot, I want a range. I want to be able to afford 93 gas, but I know my son likes playing sports. So a lot of my money goes toward that. My shoes are my only outlet, but I can afford to have shoes as my outlet. But if it all goes down and I can no longer afford to buy shoes, and it came between my shoes and buying my son playing sports or getting his, let me rephrase it, I don't want people to think the wrong thing about me. My son also had his ass for an hour doing Spanish tutoring. So like that's where my money, my free money goes to that, because I allot it. And I think sometimes there are a lot of sacrifices that inner city parents make. I'm not saying that they don't, but what I am saying is, having been through it, having seen a lot of these stuff, it was kids that I would tell when I was at Titus or when I owned my own gym, I've never owned a pair of Jordans. Bring me your Jordans and I'll let you train. That's your training. Give me your Jordans and then I'll train you. And even that mindset, nah, I can't do that. And then one kid did it. You know what I did after 12 weeks when he trained with me? I gave him his shoes back because he showed me he was willing to do it. But most of the time, we're not even willing to do that.
Hey, Mike, you got anything you want to hop in on real quick before I show this video?
No, I think he makes a good point, and he makes a great point in the sense that, I mean, I think there is something, not all like he said, not all like Whitlock and Port, what he said, LeBron privilege, athlete privilege or whatever.
Yeah. But because he there's something that builds they love the poverty shit, right?
But there is something to be said about the type of like work ethic you get when you are raised, by a working class mother, by a family that have to struggle and fight. So that inherently is distilled. And I do think there is a point into regards to, you see programs, from the community when the team is going good. You know, they support the team. Like Reebok with the girls basketball team historically here in Jacksonville, the Rangers made championships. You know, even at Jackson, you know, Sully's back, but you know, there was a difference between how he led the program and others that came, you know, not to throw any shade at anybody, but you know, how others came after him because of that fact that the alumni were so like connected to Jackson, you know, and like in a lot of ways, I think, you know, if I was talking to some of my old high school coach like a year ago, and there was a big difference between kids you get at Jackson High School and the kids you would get at other high schools, you know, because you have kids who it's all we got, you know what I'm saying? And we're going to fight and struggle and be good at this because of the fact that, you know, we need it. You know what I'm saying? This is important to us. You know, I remember my
that's Coach Sullivan, what you're looking at now. That's Mike played for him at Brother Flourish here, our own, and you know, Colt, you know, Big Game James works with him. He's a phenomenal coach, man. I mean, I personally got to know him a little bit myself when Keith was playing at Jackson. But
one of the favorite things about Sully is he was like he's a 5'5" white dude, and you would go to practice and you got 60 all black players, and he's just yelling at all of them.
And look at Maurice Jones-Drew. It's like they're about the same height.
Same height. You know what I'm saying? The same vibes, but like, you know, he ran the program. Like he instilled the discipline within the players, and his style of doing things, I think, is something that could be replicated. But also, like, I do think there is something to the fact that with certain sports, especially with specialization, like certain sports are like upper class sports. Like certain sports, you know, you can't play if you poor. Like basketball, football,
lacrosse, hockey.
Yeah, like you know, like I mean, even like let's say, for example, soccer is a sport like elsewhere besides the U.S., you know, and maybe some immigrant communities that's like very working class and for the poor. But here, they don't have like they're not teaching soccer in like elementary school in poor black neighborhood. Because if they was, we'd have dope. You know what I'm saying? We'd be running that. Like U.S. soccer team would actually be pretty legit. You know what I'm saying?
And it's not propped up in media too. It's not propped up in media narratives either. So it's not like their kids are not like with their friends dreaming about that, because it's not what they're seeing. They're seeing. I don't know. What y'all think? Go ahead, Mike. I wanted to ask you about the Deion Sanders.
Even look at some of the cuts that you saw happening. Like when I was in school 15 years ago, the first thing they cut from these inner city schools, you know, it wasn't football or basketball, it was baseball. You know, it was wrestling. It was sports that like you can tell just, you know, you can play if you don't have the money, but you need more resources and investment to really keep that sport going and also keep interest in sports, because of, you know, like it's just crazy to see a player like Mookie Betts. I look at him, his size and all that. I'd be like, damn, he'd be a dope like cornerback. You know, he'd be 5'9", 5'8", 180 pounds playing in NFL. But somehow he got to a baseball, and he's really good at that. So look at all the like Division I athletes, Division II, Division III athletes who don't make it in the NFL or make it in college. What would have happened if they would have like had been around, like in high school, there was a good baseball program they could have played. Right. You know what I'm saying? Could that have been the sport they like balled out at? You know, always something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, Mookie Betts, man, you're talking like 12-year deal, $27 million per. I mean, and it's just like one thing that's interesting with baseball. $365 million. But I mean, is that it's like guys like Ken Griffey Jr. You know, you think about him playing baseball. I mean, his son plays football, right? David Robinson, his son, well, he's basketball, but his son played wide receiver at Notre Dame. There's like, you know, baseball is what I'm specifically trying to say. And Justin, you can speak to this. Like, you know, part of it, I think this affects baseball as much as anything. But you've had fewer and fewer guys, but you also, the Mookie Betts of the world are like, you know, really important examples. I think but it's also not just examples. It's having like, you know, expanding those RBI programs and also making it where kids want to do it. It's got to be how does Major League Baseball, Justin, reach like hearts and souls of kids, you know, where they want to do it. You know?
baseball's been, I mean, I can go with just the obvious. I mean, they're without a bona fide star. Now they have stars. Mike Trout's a star.
What about Mookie Betts?
But and Mookie Betts a star. But I'm saying that there's no star persona, and baseball's lacked one for a really long time. I think the closest thing we're going to get to that is I think that where Fernando Tatis Jr. is going is he's embracing it. He's willing to talk. He's willing to, but there's a lot of baseball players that they don't want to be a part of that. I mean, look at the screws they put on Mike Trout just to be like, will you please do press? Will you please be the face of baseball? And he's like, no, like I'm good.
Yeah.
And he's the best player in baseball, and he's not doing it. On top of that, I mean, baseball's race problem has always been an issue. It's always been, baseball suffers from, the close your eyes and picture a baseball player, or what do you think these, good old boy system of scouts consider a 5-tool player? And it's the same thing that's plagued the quarterback position, but baseball acts like it's a whole sport that way, which is ridiculous because of the Latin American players are, I mean, baseball, like if they're holding on to baseball as it's like some last great white hope sport, I mean, I don't think
that's already gone, man.
Exactly.
I mean, you got the Dominican and Venezuelan players, it's taken over in a lot of ways. Puerto Rican.
Dude, if you've never been, so when I went to Kansas City a couple weeks ago, I went to
tell us about that, the Negro League Museum. Yeah.
One that dude it blew my mind. If that man, if ESPN or Major League Baseball would let him just do a seminar and just talk, he'll make anybody fall in love with baseball. And the reason why baseball is messed up is the way it's some other sports too, but you were right. Cool story on the 5-tool player. What was it? The Cleveland. Well, now I don't know what they're gonna call themselves now. The Cleveland baseball team, right? Mm-hmm. They had an opportunity to have Willie Mays, Hank Aaron. I forgot the other outfielder. Anyways, they had a chance to have all three of them, and one scout said none of them were any good. 3 Black Hall of Famers.
Oh, Willie Mays. Yeah.
Well, I said Willie Mays was one of them. Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and somebody else. Not the Yankees. It was another team that had a chance to have all 3 of them. Anyways, long story short is he talks about how exciting the Negro League game was. It was a Satchel Paige is going to pitch. He's going to intentionally load the bases. And then he's going to sit the infield down and call in the outfield. And he's going to strike out 3 guys. Do you know how exciting that would be to see?
Oh,
you know how the buzz it would get on ESPN if it was you got guys fielding ground balls between their legs, like with one hand behind their back, between their legs, scoop it up and throw it. You got guys like Bob Gibson hitting the ball out of the park. So right now, you see people doing triple steals. Like you see guys doing things that are just, even if they go out, the game is so much faster and the level of excitement. If you look at what a baseball game is now, you're like, oh man, this is going to be a pitcher's duel is not considered exciting to somebody who's not into baseball. It's considered 2-1, and America loves fast beat, upbeat things that are going to make ESPN clips. So when you look at what kids are playing, they're playing the sports that are going to get them on ESPN and get them recognized because you feel like that's going to get you out of the hood. You play baseball, you're going to spit. I only know this because I trained a lot of guys. It's not that Mookie Betts contract. That's dope. Mookie Betts made it through that. But what you realistically have is 5 years of making $1,500 a month on a bus.
Right.
And if you're lucky, you're a bonus baby. And if you get 4 years of college and then 5 years of that, you could have went and been a doctor and made a lot more money. You know what I'm saying? So like that's what's not making kids want to do it.
Yeah. James, I got to ask you, Devontae Richardson, Devo, perfect example, right? I mean, like he was such a phenomenal athlete, man. I like Albany, Georgia. I remember him was at Florida State when Ponder was there, when Weatherford was like a senior, and like he. I mean, I don't know. The dude was special, I thought, and then he went the baseball route with the Milwaukee Brewers. But just in the minor league thing, man, there's a lot of really good ball players in double AAA, man, that are just a shade not quite good enough, and they are getting paid less than teachers, basically. At least where I am up here in New York, New Jersey, to ride around on a bus everywhere and shit. So.
That's a pro athlete. So I mean, but you know what happens in the NFL? When you get drafted, no matter what you get, that rookie minimum is what and then you do all of that to make $500,000 in your first 2 to 3 years once you make it to the bigs. Now, they go to arbitration where a team argues why you're not any good and why they don't want to pay you, and then you get the big deal. So, but I mean, it's a lot of steps that you got to take to get there. Now, once you get there, you stay there for damn near forever, but it's a lot of steps to be able to get there. But a lot of it just really has to do, because I gotta get ready to go. But a lot of it has to do with people just reaching the hand back. And so like with me, I really got into coaching again because of my son. So I always talk about my boys. He's 7 years old. He wants to play football. We got a good group of kids that have learned how to play flag football. So I have a passion for lacrosse because I coach lacrosse, because one of my friends happens to be one of the best lacrosse coaches and have one of the biggest organizations on the East Coast. So I have access to be able to get them those resources for cheaper. There's a guy named Johnny Christmas who does it up in Philly with Brothers Lacrosse, and he was one of the best players in lacrosse, black kid that played at Virginia. If you ask any lacrosse person who's the greatest lacrosse player to ever play, they'll tell you Jim Brown. But that's just lacrosse. When it comes to soccer, there are ways to make these things more beneficial. Right, but we were talking about the reason why it's raising up is because of capitalism. I'm not no socialist. I ain't all that stuff, but things don't have to be as expensive as what they are. People force it to be because they're worried about their pockets. Like when I do my food drive, I argue with people all the time. They're like, if we raise the minimum wage, we're going to have to raise the price of food. And I'm like, no, you don't. Because all you're going to do is if nobody buys it, then people like me with an 18-wheeler truck are going to be able to go up to this, go up to it. We're going to get it for free because you can't do anything else with it, and we're just going to give it to people. When you could have just kept it at a lower price, then you wouldn't have to raise the minimum wage, and people would be able to afford stuff. But lacrosse kids who can afford it, they buy a new stick every year. They buy a new helmet. You don't need a new stick every year, and you don't need a new helmet. You can give that. Same thing with a baseball bat. If you're teaching people to give down, that's just my soapbox.
Man, I feel you, bro. Those are the reasons I kind of started having. But that's how I kind of became a socialist. I feel you, though. I mean, there's elements of stuff. You know what I mean? It's just that, like, looking at this thing systemically.
I want to make as much money as I can make.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel you. I want to.
Like I said, I don't want the 17-year-old me to rob me. I don't want the 17-year-old me to rob me, so I'm gonna make my money. I'm gonna make sure the 17-year-old me gets the opportunity to make as much money as possible. And but a lot of that just comes through people. Greed is the. It's not money. Is not the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. If you believe in the book. Yeah. Money's just a representation of value, man. As long as people, but the dollar, it's supreme. I know you got to roll though, right? You got a show coming up in 13 minutes? Yeah. Hey, Mike, you got anything on the way out? Crosstalk thing.
Don't do the crosstalk, man.
I'm gonna tune into the playback after 10. I'm gonna watch Snowfall, so I might not catch y'all.
Snowfall's back on,
I'll catch y'all. I'll catch the Sports Den. Make sure y'all check it out. 10 XL. Sports Den on the Apple Tunes. That's how.
I try to say something crazy again, like I did on Monday.
Yeah, you about to be on with Baloo, man?
What was that? Nah, he said Jerry Jones.
You about to be on with Baloo?
No, what? Hey, Nate. It was funny. He talked about Dak Prescott contract. He said it sounded like Jerry threw some preparations in there.
Hey, he had to, man. At that point, he didn't pay the man last year. That's one of the rare times when Dak stood him down, his agent stood him down, and Jerry paid, man. Jerry will do that though. He just tries to play hardball and pays.
All right, guys, I got to bounce.
All right,
yeah, we'll see you. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that was right. I think that was hilarious. Because seeing Dak, I'm always happy to. It's kind of like what now that I have, cause before I was kind of conscious of like capitalism and like worker struggles and kind of understood football players are workers. you know, and they make millions while the owners make billions. I used to be like, these absurd salaries. I used to be like, what the fuck, you know, blah, blah. And when I saw Dak Prescott's shit, I was like, fucking right. Good for all those fucking dudes, man.
Yeah.
They're about to fucking ball out, you know, like, cause dude, that was crazy, man.
It's also, he was getting paid like the minimum his first like 4 years. I mean, because he was a 4th round pick. So, I mean, it's kind of wild, you know, with like Dak's rise.
You know, Dak also isn't the, you know, he isn't the most like
no, not
conscious.
No.
Bag. He did speak out, you know, with well,
I mean, come on, I don't.
It's when the Kaepernick stuff became like actually mainstream. That's when he felt comfortable.
They were taking these with Jerry Jones, man. I mean, let's don't even go there with that. Let's just move on. Glad he got paid, man. Glad he got paid. Whatever. Yeah. But
he was shot down too. Remember, Jack. They all took a knee.
Anyways, yeah. I want to like just you know, move it. I mean, we talked the baseball stuff a little bit, but I got to get y'all's reaction to this before Coach Will hops in. Who from Oakland I met last night we had a great conversation, man. You know, Jason Miles that we had on a couple weeks ago, invited me on it with the producer for you know, this Matt Leck, who's from North Dakota, was like producer for the Majority Report, was Sam Cedar, and you know, we just pretty much we did stick to sports by and large, but like sports in a way where it was very like, you know, related to the political, the social, and the stuff about the gentrification of sports. I shared the 2 links to that in there. Oh yeah, Greg McDermott. I mean, like, let's go. I mean, Mike and Justin, what's your take on that? I mean, the idea that the players wanted him back, you know, it's like you can debate how much, like, you know, you really even have a say given the conditions like that, because you don't know what the alternatives are. First of all, the team's like, you know, majority white team. There's all sorts of dynamics. But Mike, what was your take on Greg McDermott, the Creighton basketball coach, and how like the aftermath of that went? Should he have been fired? Like, should they have listened to her? Like the players, like, oh, they're cool with it. Just, you know, let him stay. I mean, did they basically, you know, the punishment was you know, just the typical thing.
He's not going to say it again. I mean, I think that's you know, I think this whole right-wing narrative of cancel culture, you know, it's like a bullshit thing. You know, it's not really a legitimate thing. Like, it's not an actual. There isn't really a precedent in the United States of America of racist, misogynist, you know, transphobic behaviors being punished institutionally.
Right.
So now that they're getting shamed on social media, now it's cancel culture. You know.
Right.
And you know, like I said, you know, he's a basketball coach. He said some, you know, about stay on the plantation. You know, obviously hidden meaning. Of course, if you attach that to he's probably coaching a majority black team. Meaning
they're actually not. It's actually slightly majority white, but you know, which makes you wonder about like the black players wondering if they're.
So the one Tom Crichton, so
they're in Nebraska, bro.
He Nebraska. Fuck, bro. I don't know why I thought Crichton was like a Eastern Seaboard. It sounded like one of them, like
maybe it might be because they play. It might be because Creighton plays in the Big East, man.
Sound like one of those a coastal elite.
No, bro. Creighton's like Kyle Korver went, man. Like they're always at that team in the NCAA. Like, Mike's not like his college basketball is not.
Is
like
is, you know, I found out that Marquette was in Chicago, like literally, like
it's not in Chicago. It's in Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Marquette's in Milwaukee, bro.
All right.
We're just gonna do this thing where we start throwing things out. Where we're like, all right, Michael, where's Butler?
Where's in New York? No,
Indianapolis, bro. That they play in the gym where they filmed Hoosiers, man. Like with Gene Hackman and shit. That's Butler's home court. Gordon Hayward, man, the Great White Hope.
I will be real. I have not watched Hoosiers. It hasn't really excited me. But I think I'll check it out.
No, you're kicked out of the.
My reaction on this coaches. So I said to say, there's no such thing as cancel culture. There are individuals who put forth problematic, you know, racist speech that their employers don't approve of because they're in a broader, you know, society that you just can't be openly racist as you were anymore. I mean, you could probably still do it if you was a legislator or something, and or had institutional power, or still if you're a cop. But at least PR optics wise, that's not, that's slowly kind of shifting, even though it's not really an institutional thing as of yet. I'm not surprised that he wasn't fired. I mean, it would be different if similar with Chris Doyle, like if there was a systematic issue of years and years of he's made commentary, belittled, made jokes, like racially insensitive jokes. That's one thing that shows cause, that shows he has a history of doing it. And also Chris Doyle was unrepentant. He denied any, saying it. Like if you say some really messed up shit, take account for it. I think this coach apologized for it, and he's never going to be saying it again. I think that's what people want. And people want to see the individual who's accused of like being insensitive, racially insensitive or stuff like that actually show that, oh, I did this, I'm sorry. Even if it's bullshit, you're actually admitting that there was an issue. It goes bad and people get fired and and get blackballed, rightfully so, like a Chris Doyle, when you are unrepentant about what you said. You deny it. Similar to like individuals who are accused of, assault or whatnot. Is one thing if you're, like Kavanaugh, who was fucking, who based it in Hillary Clinton shit, like that's.
Absolutely.
I let Justin hop in, but I'm just going to share this and just want to say before when Justin wraps up, we're going to move on to Les Miles in the Kansas situation, what went on at LSU. So I'll go ahead and share this right now, and then Justin, go ahead with your point, and then we'll segue into this.
Yeah, it's also there's cancel culture has a dollar limit that it also can't touch. He's a coach that has a spotlight on him to an extent. Do you guys remember that booster? I'm going to forget his name. There was a booster from Ole Miss that said some of the most racist, vile shit that got outed. And this dude's still rich. He had the money to protect him. If cancel culture could really do this, it would have put him out. Like, dude's not out. He's the one who said, God, I'm trying to remember his name. He's the one that said 2018, he was talking about they took videos of some of the players and some girls out, and he was like, it's prostitutes out here outside of called them prostitutes, said there's going to be a shooting if we don't get back to our culture, which we all know what he means at Ole Miss. And then literally said, and when there is a shooting, they're all going to be sorry that they ever stopped playing Dixie. I mean, the shit he said was fucking hideous. And this dude still runs some venture capital firm in Houston. He still has the president of Ole Miss on speed dial, still can, call up, support, do whatever, like untouchable, and that's a whole thing with the cancel culture thing that, I feel like it's people like, it's petty bourgeois to fake rich that can be like, wow, my whole livelihood is gone. You're somewhere in the middle, but you're a billionaire, you're a billionaire. Like they're not going to touch that. How poor is the Clippers owner now, former Clippers Sterling? How, is he
a billionaire, man?
Exactly. Like it is, people cry, they'll cry about the cancel culture if it can take away their 10-cent millionaire status, or it can take away their, small business or whatever it is that, they actually, people could vote with their money. You can't vote Donald Sterling with your money. Like there's nothing you can do. He's made it. He's rich. He's racist, and he'll just go away to old man racist island, which is what I assume billionaires do. But he's so it's one thing. Like I just had to say that with that cancel culture, because so many boosters have said racist shit, and nothing happens. Nothing happens.
Well, it's like money buys you. Like, I mean, if you got that kind of wealth, you're uncancelable. I mean, Dave, Portnoy taught. I mean, it says it all the time. I'm uncancelable. I mean, it's like so money does apply to that. So this notion that like when people are democratically, getting together collectively using their voices to like try to say, no, we don't want this on our campus. Like James said, you don't have a right to you have a right to free speech. You don't have a right to like a certain every specific platform. If a college or university decides we don't want you to speak here because the public and people use their voices, right, that they got should count too, to say that you're not welcome. That's not saying you don't have a First Amendment right to stand on the corner and say what you want, right? So it's like it's definitely been like a narrative they've tried to run with because they find it advantageous. Coach Will, what's good though, man? From Oakland, he was on with us last night. He coached Dame Lillard in high school and does a lot of basketball stuff on the West Coast, man. And we just were having some interesting talk about sporting gentrification stuff last night, and some movie suggestions. Boogie, I guess it was last night. Said if you're gonna watch another bad movie with a bunch of bad white actors, you might as well. The worst thing that happens is you watch one with some Asians, right? Yeah. Anyways, man, how's it going tonight, man? Glad to have you.
Man, it's freezing. Well, I don't know where you guys are at, but it's California freezing. So it's
bro, that's a thing in the Bay Area, man. Yeah, it's that Bay Area cold, man. It's like an hour inland or whatever, or more to Stockton. It's like you get that heat, crazy heat. But then the Bay Area, you're right. It's like you could be middle of July or August, and you're like, look at the
I say California cold because here's a quick basketball story. I got all these Oakland kids, whatnot. They think they're tough. We played in Reno, Nevada one year, and we drive there in a van, about 30 minutes outside of Reno. Guys got their beanie hats, their gloves, their big coats on. We pull up to the gym, and their girls' basketball team is in the parking lot running laps in shorts and tank top. So California cold is it's 52 degrees, turn on the heat, whereas it's soda or whatever you mean.
Oh, yeah. It's a totally different thing, man. I mean, it's no doubt about it. Hey, you kind of hopped in on a time when we were on this kind of college football tear talking about Les Miles getting canned. But, since he was at Kansas and you have Bill Self at Kansas, I was wondering maybe from a basketball point of view, totally different circumstances. But there's a big scandal at Kansas and at the FBI probe that's been going into investigating the relationship between shoe companies and the placement of top line recruits. Could you speak to maybe just that kind of there's basketball culture, but then there's kind of that shadow culture that has to do with identifying the top players and all the pressures that get thrown at them if they don't got people in their corner that are helping shield them and kind of guide them in the right way. Because you see it with Kansas and the Adidas stuff with Bill Self and how it's going to play out in other schools too. But I was just wondering what your thoughts were.
All the head coaches have been unscathed.
Yeah.
All the primarily younger black assistants of all, jail time, fine, lost jobs. So I mean, even with that whole coaching culture in high end Division I, Power 5 or whatever you want to call it. It's not about the game. It's about money, and it's an arms race. It's an arms race to get kids. So I mean, there's a lot of unscrupulous people. I mean, there's a whole I forgot the term you just used, but there's a whole kind of underworld economy.
Yeah.
Pimping basketball players.
No doubt.
So for instance, if I had a top 50 player, and every coach wanted to get to him, they can't necessarily pay the kid. Some of the coaches are more brazen about it, and they actually will do it. But hey, if you want to even talk to my kid, when you do your quote unquote elite camp and you need a guest speaker, you pay me my $5,000 guest speaking fee, which includes a plane ticket for my kid to come and play in the camp. And I could use that money to give him whatever I need to give him. And if I do that to 10 schools, that's my money for the year. That's my monthly or my yearly salary. It doesn't include, if I've got my degree and I want an assistant coaching job, they hire me 2 years before my kid graduates. I'm getting my 6 figures for a couple of years to get him on campus. So there's a lot of that type of stuff. What is it called? The independent scouting websites where they'll take common knowledge, or they'll even just take information directly from Rivals, Scout.com, ESPN. Put together their own lists,
right,
and then just
republish that, man.
Republish it. But you're selling memberships to college coaches, $500 a pop. And the information they already have, but it's that I run that website, and I have, an AAU team that has 9 kids.
Yeah, man.
If you want access to my 9 kids, you need to buy this membership. And I can sell, 25, 30, 40 memberships.
Yeah.
You already know the guy's number 4 in the class. You're just,
So facts. Yo, I want to show something real quick, and get your Justin and Will your take, because this Texas A&M stadium proposal thing, it's actually already been built, but I think this shows how insane the fan culture is around sport. This happens to be football, but it could easily relate to basketball too, and does. But I might not play the whole thing, but listen to the narrator. It's for me, I don't like making analogies to fascism and stuff too much, but when you look at Texas A&M and their in this culture, I think it's gonna be pretty mind blowing. And then I want to bring it back, because he hit on some stuff. I want to get to your own stories, Dame Lillard, the role that players from the hood are having to play to help keep their own high school programs going, and how that's just the reality of people doing what they got to do with the way our system is right now. I mean, I feel you, Coach. About the amount of money I lost when I was coaching high school football, it is what it is. It's just, you're not doing it for the money. You can't. But it's it was giving those kids a little bit of structure, a little bit of time, maybe to get to a point where they wanted to get swallowed up by the streets, and then they had a chance to maybe make something level of decision that's autonomous, that's not based on just coercion, because they don't have options. So anyways, let's check this out real quick, and then we'll react on the back end here. All right. I've been working to get to this point for 45 minutes now, so here we are.
You got it. Can't hear the audio.
All right. Let's see then. When I'm sharing it, then I got to tell me again real quick, Justin. I'm sharing. What do I hit? Application window or just the Chrome tab? I got to hit audio.
Yeah. Yep.
That would help, right?
That moment.
You had it. We were there.
In the light of every great.
It's not playing?
It's working. It's working. It's working.
Great institution.
There you go.
There comes a defining moment.
It's playing.
Where greatness is either grasped or lost, perhaps forever. At Texas A&M, that moment is now. We are embarking on a bold quest, the redevelopment of iconic Kyle Field into the finest collegiate football facility in the country, as well as our window to the world to communicate our unique story. When complete, it will be the most extensive redevelopment of a collegiate athletic facility in history. It will require a shared vision, produce a shared benefit, and require a shared sacrifice by all Aggies. It is inside and outside the stadium that our uniqueness as a culture shines brightest, especially on game day. Therefore, the telling of our story must take place both inside and adjacent to Kyle Field. The stadium design will feature a primarily traditional brick, glass, and limestone facade that will exude power, prominence, and endurance, while plazas and walkways surrounding the stadium will celebrate the uniqueness of our students, our athletes, our alumni, and our unique core values. Anchored at the corner of Joe Route Boulevard and Houston Street by a larger-than-life statue of E. King Gill, Houston Street, home of the historic Cora Martin and the spirit of the Aggie football team, will be completely redeveloped with extensive landscaping and decorative paving that will connect from George Bush Drive on the south all the way to Military Walk on the north. The east side of the stadium.
Yo, hold on. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can't hear any of y'all. No.
Yeah. So when you're sharing your audio, you just can't hear.
Yeah. I got you. All right.
Has been, is now, and forever will be the home of our students. On game day, 31,000 students pack Kyle Field and stand throughout the game as the powerful and intimidating 12th man. The home of the 12th man will be prominently displayed on the east side of the stadium.
We can hear him then listening
while the
to
exterior of the east side will be anchored by the War Hymn Monument. A group of students.
This is where it really gets crazy. A group of students reflecting the true diversity of our student body here, and just listen to some of the specific things this guy's about to say here.
Reflecting the true diversity of our student body, joined together, sawing varsity's horns off. In addition, the various groups of students who are so instrumental in the uniqueness of the 12th man, such as the Yell Leaders, the Fighting Texas Aggie Band, the Corps of Cadets, and the students at Yell practice will be honored as well. On the north end of the stadium, in the area between Kyle Field and the Memorial Student Center, will be Kyle Field Park. Developed as a metaphor for a football field, this spacious plaza will honor the great moments, teams, and players of the rich history that is Texas A&M.
Yo, y'all did that metaphor for a football field? It is getting wilder now.
While also serving as a primary pre- and post-game gathering place for multi-generations of Aggies. The west side of the...
And what I mean by this is like, listen to like the kind of like almost like blood and soil, like just insinuations about grit, like about like just grit and like the idea of just like, like everything's just about willing it into existence and spectacle. Here you see Paul Bear Bryant, who was the coach at A&M before he went to Alabama in 1958. But
Junction Stadium is traditionally reserved.
What's that, Mike?
The Junction Boys.
Yeah, Junction Boys, where they almost damn near died. Yeah, but
Killed all the players.
Facts. Yeah.
For former students, those who grew and matured and learned from their experience as members of the 12th man, and who now choose to give back to their beloved university through service, leadership, and financial commitment. The West Side features Victory Plaza, a fully landscaped, upscale tailgating and gathering area. Throughout the plaza are memorials to our 6 core values: excellence, leadership, integrity, selfless service, respect, and loyalty, to remind the world and ourselves that these values are what truly make us unique, different, and great. The majestic entrance into the west side leads all premium and priority seat holders into like the magnificent Champions Hall,
the magnificent
a 3-story air-conditioned concourse with vastly enhanced concessions, merchandising, and restrooms that serves as the...
Keep in mind, as Michael Bennett, who played here, and Martellus Bennett talked about, this is completely free labor as it is everywhere else. Well, I mean, there's bagmen and stuff, let's not lie, but like officially, right, without breaking the law or NCAA law, right, no free labor. But yet the decadence of this, and you're about to hear, it gets even wilder here, just how they describe all this. This is the experience that these people are being able to be sold. Like these boosters have been able to live, to be the modern day kings, the feudal overlords, looking over essentially what is their 21st century plantation take place on the field. I mean, not to be hyperbolic, it's just it's hard to ignore the kind of connection.
The new home of the Aggie Sports Museum, and is also capable of hosting large-scale events throughout the year. At the top of the first level, one of the most unique features of the stadium redevelopment is found: the Founders Suites. These 12 ultra-luxurious suites, with over 960 square feet of finished space, will feature extremely high-end finishes, as well as 20 theater-style seats with a premier view of the field.
Listen to the music.
In addition, these 12 suites will have their own exclusive lounge area, accessible
fireplace.
only to those seated in these
Accessible
areas.
only to those seated.
The second deck of the west
For the
side
winners.
features a high-end private club extending from
High-end
goal
private
line
club.
to goal line.
Goal line to
Designed
goal
to
line,
service
baby.
the 3,500 club seats located
Yeah.
in the second deck of the west side, as well as the suites and loge boxes. The east and west suites will host from 12 to 17 patrons and will allow fans the ability to choose whether they want portions of their suite to be climate controlled behind glass or to be fully open, allowing fans to soak in the full game day environment.
Soak it in, baby.
Another unique product offering will be loge boxes, 4 and 6 person mini suites that will provide a unique game day viewing environment. At Texas A&M, we don't watch the game, we affect the game.
We affect the game.
To enhance the noise level and intimidation factor at Kyle Field, the field is being lowered and seating moved closer to the field.
It's like this is battle war
while
music
still
right
allowing
now.
for the traditional core march in. In addition, the stadium is being enclosed and canopies are being placed over the east and west stands so that the noise is fully trapped.
And the eyes of
Providing the
Texas are upon you.
opportunity to create the most intimidating environment.
That's their rival who they don't play
All
anymore.
Texas
But
sports.
Texas Longhorns.
Designed to seat in excess
almost
of
done.
102,000 fans when fully developed, Kyle Field will serve as a monument to the uniqueness that is only Texas A&M.
All right, so go ahead and react to that. The arms race in college football is real. This is a huge part of it. This is what got Jimbo Fisher to Texas A&M from Florida State at $7.5 million a year. Just look, Texas spends all the money, so A&M's got to. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, it's same thing that came out of a school I didn't go to, but I have strong family ties to. But similar thing. Penn State Board of Trustees just voted like 27 to like 6. I mean, it wasn't even close. But just voted to spend $48 million to renovate one of their football buildings, not the stadium, not anywhere where the fans go, not anywhere where the public go, not anywhere where the student body go. No, this is just football operations building. $48 million. So many of their faculty have been furloughed. They have told so many departments. They told their library they had to raise money to make things happen. And what they did in this trustee vote is basically says, no, the football program can borrow $48 million from the school to make their football building better. So it happens with all the powerhouse schools. This arms race. And again, like if people were to just, you'd hear that and you'd go $48 million. Wow. So the boosters, raised $48 million. No, they're literally getting it fronted by the school with the hopes that it'll be an investment they get back later when they're telling their own library at the school, no, I'm sorry, you have to raise your money. And if you don't catch that one part, you just think, no, it's $48 million and they raised it somehow. Nope, the school's giving it to them, like to a football building that's not even a stadium. But like I said, it's just one example. But that happened this week, and it's just like this shit will never stop.
Will, you got a response in terms of like maybe on basketball level, how like this facilities arms race like ties into some of the larger issues?
Yeah, one of my kids played basketball at Missouri. And I went to visit him. He had redshirt because he transferred from Oregon, another real opulent. Facility.
Oh yeah, man! I'm a Nike.
So I went to visit him, and on the other end of the spectrum of this arms race is, I had to drive about 2.5 hours from St. Louis to get to the campus, which is probably the scariest drive I've ever taken by myself. And in hindsight, I'm driving through Ferguson and, all these like horror stories with the police there, but that's another story. I get there and I grab him to go grab lunch. The rest of the team was getting ready for, I think, Kansas State. So they're out of the area, and the red shirts stayed. And when I went to take him to lunch, I had to have him call their compliance officer
to make sure it was okay for me to pay for the meal because I'm not blood family. You know, when he's like, it should be okay. I was like, call just to make sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, compliance guys. Yeah, that's so on point.
So you guys know who Juan Toscano Anderson is? Plays for the Warriors.
Yeah.
He's another local Oakland kid. I've known him since he was like middle school, but he didn't come to our high school. But you know, he went to Marquette to play basketball, and I believe his roommate or a friend of his had I think Diamondback playoff tickets, and so he went to the game. Nothing of it. You know, turns out, you know, he ended up getting suspended for 2 or 3 games because his roommate's dad had tickets, and you know, he had to like reimburse the dad face value of the ticket, and it's like, you know, you know, if you go to the Missouri basketball facility, I can only imagine the football facility. If you go to the basketball facility, it is like as a basketball coach, I could literally like live there and be fine. You're talking like, you know, kitchen, leather couch, like everything that you could possibly want. You know, the auxiliary practice gym is nicer than, you know, than a lot of like main.
So, Coach, just letting you know, you see on the screen here, like the Slam Magazine article. Just wondering if you like, you know, had any context you wanted to add to this about Toscano Anderson and his story. Sorry, I didn't mean to touch you off. Just wanted.
Yeah, no, he's another local kid. You know, and but yeah, no, the main thing about that him getting suspended is, you know, kind of like similar to was a Matt Leinart when he went back to
did you say Matt Leinart?
Yeah, when he went back to USC. But
yeah. He went back for his last year. That's right.
Dad was paying for some crazy apartment, and you know, I'm assuming some of that money was taken off of a loan off his potential. But he had a roommate that was living with him that was like his boy, but he was like either a regular student or like just a regular low-level player. And they had to make him like either move out or had to pay like half of his, you know, $4,000, you know, or half of his $8,000 rent. So it was like, it doesn't make sense. You know, when who was it that was a few years ago talking about college athletes, you know, starving and not getting meals. I had another kid that played Division One.
Shabazz Napier.
Yeah,
Shabazz Napier. We were talking about. Yeah,
There's another kid that went to Oakland High that played basketball at Cal, and I remember I think it's far enough removed, where there's no like statute of limitations or anything. But he took a financial paycheck, moved out of his apartment, bought a car, because you know it's like he lived close enough to campus where he could, you know, move, you know, live with his family, but it's like he needed a car. So it was like, do I pay for my rent, not have a car, or do I have a car and figure out, you know, how to live? You know?
Yeah. Coach, but just talk about how messed up this is, because then you get lumped in with all these actually shady people, right, that are like handlers and runners, and you got the gatekeeper sitting there condescendingly looking down on the very dudes that are like literally putting their own time, blood, sweat, and tears in to give rides to kids, man, to like just to basically, you know, like are dedicating their lives to service. And yet, because this system sets it up where we had this archaic notion of amateurism, this like, and you even hear the NCAA referring to it in their briefs, like the Supreme Court case is coming up, Austin versus NCAA versus Austin. It's really a continuation of the Ed O'Bannon stuff, but the NCAA, the language about amateurism, it's crazy. And then they get Darren McFadden, they get other players on board that were notable guys to say, you know, that they thought they were going to be side with the NCAA, but then they actually said, no, the NCAA, like this, I mean, they weren't saying F the NCAA, but they were just saying like, yeah, I mean, I couldn't even pay for parking tickets from University of Arkansas and, you know, coming from where I came from. So I don't know. I was just wondering if you could respond to any of that.
With Dame Lillard, when he was a senior, he was like, I think a 2-star recruit.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't really have
to Weber State, right?
Yeah, we didn't have to really worry about any of that type of stuff. But a couple years later, we had a kid that was number 18 in the country, right? Jordan Brand All-American. He was like that guy. And we knew him since he was in middle school. He played AAU with a bunch of our guys, but he ended up going to a private school, went to a prep school, and then ended up transferring back to Oakland High, which in and of itself was a whole mess because, you know, he wasn't supposed to transfer back to the public school. Like every private school wanted him. Like he was that guy. So there was coaches in our area that protested him.
Oh, whoa, it's going.
He had to sit out like I think 3, 4 or 5 games just to get cleared to play. But anyways, when he was at Oakland High, because we knew him as a kid, and one of the reasons why he came back to Oakland High was just because it's like family. He knew that we didn't have any ulterior motives with him. Pretty much the moment he set foot on campus, Coach Watkins and I had to kind of fend off people trying to get to him. People showing up to games that never came to any games.
If y'all wondering what I'm showing right now, I'm showing pictures of Damian Lillard from Oakland High School, where Coach Will's from. I'm talking about giving back and all that. So keep going, Coach. I'm letting people know.
There was people coming out the woodwork that were knowing that we're strapped financially. Like, hey, we can get you these shoes, and we had to turn down a lot of free stuff because we didn't want him to be, to feel like he owes anyone anything when he does make his college decision, or when he does end up going pro. Right. He played like 2 10-day contracts and with the Lakers, and he played overseas. But he was just literally the moment he decided to come to Oakland High, our world changed. And for our coaching staff, it was one of those things where it could have been a whole different story if we had different approaches to coaching. I don't want to say anyone's morals because, to each his own, but, I probably could have flipped access to him for 5 figures.
No doubt.
Easily. But yeah, it's a different world. Like, you see some of these, are you guys familiar with Dominguez down in LA, Dominguez High School?
I have heard of them in recruiting. Is that what specifically? Yeah, they're in Compton, right? Yeah.
Go ahead and look up Dominguez basketball coach, and I'm pretty sure I don't want to get anyone in trouble for it.
Russell Otis.
Yeah.
What's up with Russell Otis, man? Tell us the scoop here, bro.
Allegedly, he's been accused of allegedly.
There you go. Convicted of misdemeanor child molesting. But don't worry, it's just a misdemeanor, though, right?
No, but he's been accused multiple times over I want to say 2 decades. But he was a mover and shaker.
Yeah, it says Russell Otis here. This is in the LA Times, right? Was directed Dominguez High School to 5 boys state basketball championship. I mean, this was in 2009. Was convicted of misdemeanor child molesting. So that should have barred him from being able to coach, right? Did he still get to coach after that, or is this what's the situation?
I believe he still ended up coaching for a while after that. It was a mess. There's a book actually by George Dorman of Sports Illustrated called "Play Their Hearts Out," and it's about kind of the the underbelly of AAU basketball. But one of the players covered in that book was one of his victims. And the story goes, the kid goes to his mom. It's like, "Mom, this is what's happening." And her response was like, "Are you sure? Because we need this money." Because she was getting money from, I believe, the AAU team, as well as from some people affiliated with coach to be able to, pay their bills and send them to the school.
Yeah.
So I could not imagine a kid telling a parent, and the parent's response was like, "Are you sure? Because we need this money." So that kid, he ended up, I believe, dropping out of high school, disappearing for a good 6-7 years, and then just like 6-7 years later, kind of, got counseling and whatnot, and ended up back on a Division I roster. But it was kind of like, whatever happened to that kid?
Right. Yeah, one of those.
It could have ended up a lot more tragic.
Man, there's so many of these things, right? It's just like you can go down the line and there's time, but it's there's positive stories. There's coaches that are doing great things, like Coach Will, and people I know, like here in Jersey City, Coach Robert Hampton. who does such a great job with the kids at Lincoln High School Lions Nation football program. Gives them something to feel a part of and be a part of, and it's a shame that their options are so limited, or even their perceived options are so limited. I mean, one thing we noticed that part of No Child Left Behind Act was the gutting of like woodshop programs, hands-on. It was the idea of type work, learning how to do stuff, because it was like the only thing they would fund was testing and more testing. The idea that education, any kind of vocations, inherently makes you kind of dumb. That actually one of the areas where there are the most jobs right now are for people that they weren't just all pushed, like you got to go to college, everybody, which I'm not against. I'm not like, the Republicans will say, oh, that's bigotry of low expectations, whatnot. No, you're like, you can like learn about stuff, but if you're not ready to learn about like English lit or like poetry or take class in that, you're not going to be into it, right? And the way the system like kind of forces kids, like here I am proctoring the PSAT on Saturday for 6 hours to get paid, but that if you're not that system, it doesn't. So now they're finally starting to reverse that. Is my point. They're finally starting to bring back some of those programs, and that's where a lot of jobs are now, and people don't have the 1-2 year certs they need. Go ahead, Coach.
One of the things, I mean, kind of on that note is not even so much the push into that college industrial complex, is more so the push there at all costs where you're riddled with debt.
Yeah, facts. Yeah.
So I have a kid right now. He's playing Division II basketball. When he came to us, I believe one of the things with our program is we do year-round study hall. So even when we're out of season, we expect the kids to be in study hall. If you're not showing up regularly, you're not communicating, you probably should transfer no matter how good you are, because you're not going to make it with us. One of the benefits of having, kind of our relationship with Dame and Adidas is our relationship is not contingent on winning or producing.
Are you wearing that Nike hoodie right now?
Yeah, this is one of Dame's best friends coaches at Cleveland High in Oregon. Yeah. So
gotcha. Word.
But
I couldn't resist, man.
I'm not sponsored. I don't get a check.
Yeah.
But no, so like we could lose every game and we still have the relationship. And Dame, worked that into his contract, which is beautiful.
That's dope, man.
But this kid, he shows up as a freshman, probably like 5'3", maybe 95 pounds. And first report card, he got a couple C's, maybe a B, and he thinks he's doing okay. And Coach Watkins kind of lays into him, like, you're 5'3", you might not make the team. If you're not going to get grades, like, what are you going to do with your life? And the good thing is, I think, especially with teenagers, if we're saying that as coaches and adults in a vacuum, in one ear, out the other. But he sees all the juniors and seniors in study hall looking at him like, oh, you're tripping, you're not going to make it. And from that point until his senior year, he didn't get anything lower than an A in any class. So going into his senior year, I'm looking through his transcripts, getting ready to send him out to some college coaches, and I looked at his middle school grades. All D's and F's. So it's kind of like you just see kind of like you put the right expectations on, to the point where when he was a senior, we had a real good freshman class. And, those freshmen thought they were, God's gift and everything. And they're, going through the motions in study hall. They can't wait until 5:30 hits. So at about 5:21, they're already putting their stuff away, And this kid literally 2 or 3 times out of the 5 days of the week, Coach, can I get an extra 20 minutes? I got to finish this project. Coach, before I go to the gym, can I stop by this teacher's room? Blah, blah, blah. So, he got a couple B's his senior year because he took AP classes, But the beautiful thing about him is he went from, possibly think he had an outside chance to make the NBA. He didn't. To he goes to this Division II school, and the coach didn't even recruit him. He's on a full academic scholarship. Mm-hmm. And I happen to know the coach, made some calls, got him a chance to try out. And he, not only made the walk-on spot, coach was like, why didn't you let us know about him?
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, I did. You just weren't going to drive that 3 hours to come see him. But, I knew how good he was, but I also knew that because of his academic situation and the fact that he was low income, first and second to college, he's going to be able to go to any school for free.
Yeah.
So he's
not.
Yeah, he's
You
not.
gotta have people that know the system like you do, man. And it's important. You gotta have people like that in your corner.
Yeah, he's not being pushed to school and then leaving school with $60,000, $70,000 of debt.
Yeah,
he's basically. This is how I shopped him to the coach. He's a free player.
Right.
His academic scholarship covers him for 5 years, including housing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't take him, he's still coming to school because that's where he applied to anyways. He has a chance to start next year. So he's a free player. And if he ever gets to the point where he doesn't feel like playing basketball, he's not depending on that, being part of that free labor to stay in school.
It.
He can literally quit basketball and he's still fine.
And you were talking last night about how this generation, it is true, like they're much savvier than even in the late 90s, all through the 2000s, guys, like the party culture stuff, a lot of that. I mean, that's becoming, guys do it, but like this generation is not like, smoking as much weed, I think, as guys 10 years ago, doing just like they're still working hard, but the whole work hard, play hard. People are really focused on like a holistic, like, total like body development, mental development, and it taking over every aspect of life.
There was that article with Rocket Ishmael.
Yeah.
Notre Dame degree, real smart guy. And he was talking about, you're always told to invest. So, it's like my auntie could cook. Let me open a restaurant. But it's like, cooking is like the least important thing in running a restaurant. You look at McDonald's, like the cooking is not important. Payroll, equipment, overhead, food costs, all that type of stuff. So I think because of those type of stories, and you have guys like, Jamal Mashburn, who, ended up buying 40, 50 something franchises and realized, I don't understand the language at any of these board meetings that I'm sitting in. Let me go as a retired NBA player that's worth however millions of dollars. Go sit in some of these JC classes, and learn business, and that way I could participate and be at a lower risk of someone screwing me over.
Yeah, it's wild, man.
Your Bridgman that played in the NBA back in the 70s. Supposedly he's like close to being a billionaire, and his NBA earnings was like 150,000.
Yeah,
like learning from those guys and the promotion of those guys versus promoting guys that are buying the $150,000 chains.
Yeah, no facts. Coach, so I'm gonna have to just on the theme we were on, stadiums and decadence. This is just like a 2-minute deal of Clemson football. We've talked so much about Dabo Swinney and Clemson. I think this is a useful illustration of the decadence in the facility. You gotta. Oh man, I really wanted to hear you on this, but all right, bro.
That's Dabo Swinney.
Yeah, Dabo Swinney.
I don't want my kids to be entitled.
Yeah.
Insane. How do you describe this place to people who've never been here?
Oh, it's special. It's unique. It's different, uncommon. It's fun.
Hunter Renfro.
How are you doing?
I heard you're my tour guide today.
I am. I'm going to show you around this beautiful place.
Let's do it, champ.
Let's get it. So it's built for 300-pound men. So here it is, the weight room where all the magic happens.
23,000 square feet.
Unbelievable.
Who's the biggest freak in the weight room?
So if you come here, it's Saturday, Sunday, it doesn't matter when. Christian Wilkins is always in here working. And that's why he's the player he is.
Oh, look out, baby.
That's how it's done right there.
Boom. So what's this here?
This is the wall of the Daboisms.
What's your favorite Daboism?
I got to say this one right here, bloom where you planted. He was running in the stadium not too long ago and saw this little flower planting in the top row of the stadium. If that can grow in cement, then we can bloom where we're planted.
I like that. Man, Hunter, you guys have everything here.
Oh,
Yep.
man. Oh, yeah.
Who's got the best hair on the team, Hunter?
Best hair. Probably Nick Raoul. He's a freshman, yeah.
What's the score? I got you. I beat a national champ. Uh-oh, hoop court.
Bowling alley. putting green.
Wake up. What were you dreaming about?
I was not dreaming about anything.
National championships, rings. Man, so last time I played college ball, I had hair.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking I could fool some people. I could try out for the team. Still some eligibility. What do you think, man? Team meeting.
This is where the tour ends right here.
Oh,
Man.
man.
I'll see you later.
But I played in the NFL, man. I played for the Bills.
Go.
I'm all in. I'm all in.
That's it. So I mean, like whatever, but it's just like, you know, that the amount of things you see this being spent, it's cool and guys like that stuff. But when you hear, you know, that like it's all just it's just student athletes, you know, that's it. Mike, what are your thoughts there, seeing all the wonderful amenities there you get as Clemson football players? I'm sure all those guys would rather have that stuff than, you know, than paychecks, right?
It's almost like one of the things that you look at it. If they were actually paying the players like the value they're worth, what they're creating, like it's obvious like the facilities probably wouldn't be as nice, or maybe they would have enough money to make the facilities. I mean, all the facilities, like the arms race, is literally to attract free labor. You know, like they want to have the nicest facilities because we're not paying you, you're not getting any like endorsements or anything, but it's a nice campus. Look at this locker room. I mean, stuff like that, you know, has an appeal to kids for sure. I mean, because they're not getting paid. I think it's a different factor if they were actually getting paid, you know what I'm saying, which they should be. But also, I mean, you know, a lot of these programs is built around the code of personality of the coach, you know, and his vision and what he wants. And it's to, you know, that's why institutions, you know, you have formerly with LSU, you know, we kind of teased us a little about the Les Miles situation, the former, you know, a current Kansas football coach.
No, he's not the current coach.
I thought he was on administrative leave.
No, he's fired, my man, and completely out the door. And they're trying not to even pay him the buyout. Right? But they know that they paid him the buyout though. But it's gotten like it's gonna be fought over. It's just like, I mean, we gotta share this. The LSU AD, look at this. I mean, wanted him gone back in 2013.
They fired the AD. Yeah,
stuff's coming out. Yeah,
last time I had looked, he was on admin leave 2 days ago. So I probably
that was recent.
I'm a busy person, so I'm not following Kansas football.
It's all good, man. Yeah.
But you know, I think you see a culture of there were numerous accusations, you know, of his like conduct at LSU in regards to like interacting with co-eds, interacting with like women, you know, promising them like upper positions in the athletic department if they got involved with them and whatnot.
But Mike, just listen to this. The initial report alleged Miles texted woman student workers on a burner phone, drove them alone to his condo, and kissed a student on at least one occasion at OSU. Miles, who was directly involved with hiring student employees, reportedly made it clear he wanted these employees to have a certain look, attractive, blonde fit. Employees at the time that not fit the description were given fewer hours or fired, according to the report.
I mean, why work this hard to be the multi-million-dollar god if I can't scam on some college girls?
Oh yeah. That's the mentality. Yeah,
I guess, but similar like
Mad Hatter.
To my original point that I was explaining, you know, it's about like how these programs set it up, that you built these code of personalities around these football coaches, you know, like they said, Les Miles, the Mad Hatter, you know, wins a national championship after losing to Alabama during the regular season and can get away with what he wants to, you know what I'm saying, at LSU, you know, recruiting players like Darius Geis, who was drafted by the Washington football team in the second round, ends up tearing his ACL his first year, comes back his second year, gets hurt again, and then come to find out he's kicked out of the league because he, you know, assaults and almost strangles his girlfriend.
He's done this a bunch, actually.
And it turns out in college, and Les Miles suppressed those reports. Turns out in college, you know, he was hitting on fucking 89-year-old women, 80-year-old security guards at the Superdome, saying that he has a fetish for older women.
Right.
You know, think about, like, Nate, you was telling me about all the stuff with Kellen Winslow Jr. Like back in the day.
Look that shit up sometime if you want to really
have
a
reputation of being this weird sicko. You know.
So there you go, Mike. Mike, look at my screen.
70-year-old, not 80. All right, yeah. But you know what I mean? Like this is a kid who had a huge who's always had problems, but his talent, and also the fact that Les Miles at the time was his coach, and I believe it was Ed Orgeron. He played on Ed Orgeron for like a year or two, I believe.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like you see that, like you see how these fiefdoms are created. Based on like these football institutions being billion-dollar, multi-million-dollar programs, as well as other athletics, but also, and we talked about this on earlier shows, the educational industrial complex, how you look at all these states, these board of governors, these ruling institutions over these schools. It's all heads of banks, who for some reason, like the head of the, at one time I went to Florida State University, the head of the board of governors was literally the head of the Florida State Board of Trustees. One of the years when I was there was literally the CEO of SunTrust. And who's the bank at FSU? SunTrust. These colleges make money hand over fist because you have these students that are always going to come to your school, especially if you let more of them in. Everyone wants a college degree. So what do you do with that? You build housing, you build food, you build entertainment centers, a market that evolves around these students coming. And this is before we get to the student athletes part. Like, think about the athletics. Like in Florida State University, you got this place that was built in the last 6, 7, 8 years called College Town with what's that, like, hipster store that people love, Urban Outfitters?
Yeah. Well, it's like totally gentrified, the whole Jane Street area, that whole neighborhood.
And that place is totally different than it was 10 years ago.
Completely. It's unrecognizable.
$1,200 apartment complexes for like upper middle class, wealthy, like students,
and lobbyists and stuff. Got places around there for the
state government. It's part of the profitization of what is, amateurism of education. I mean, you see that, education's like profitized off of on like high school levels, with like, you go to a public high school, sometimes you may see like food service and janitorial services being contracted out to private corporations or things of that nature, in which corporations are making money. But when you get to college, so-called higher education, I mean, it's a battlefield.
Yeah, Mike. I mean, just think about it. I mean, LSU even covered for him, like when it got to be a 70-year-old security guard at the 70-year-old female security guard at the Citrus Bowl in Orlando. Geis attended. Wait, hold on. What was this here? Yeah, ahead of his final game. So sorry, this was right before the Citrus Bowl in Orlando. He was in New Orleans at the Superdome for a high school football championship. And at 3:30, she was sitting on a chair at her post when Darius Geis and several other men approached her. He began saying that he likes older women and asked if she would have sex with him. With the findings read per SI's Ross Dellinger. She was shocked and told him that was not funny. He continued to gesture at his private area and grab himself in front of her, saying that older women are my thing, and they could just go off and do it somewhere. And then this was covered up by LSU, and then he was drafted by the Washington football team. He was also accused of rape by a pair of former LSU students. And so the situation, now we're going to see Ed Orgeron, who's got a history of kind of covering for, this kind of behavior sometimes. And, what's happened with Les Miles, I mean, which is just astounding, really, when you look at now the AD at Kansas is also gone, and Jeff Long. So really wild stuff.
AD's gone?
Yeah. He, as of 3 hours ago. Yep. He's out. So it's a lot of stuff in motion right now, for sure, man. A lot of stuff in motion. But we got Mike. I know you got to run though, man. Anything you want to say on the way out?
No, man. Coach Will, I definitely enjoyed listening to your stories, and I definitely want to support all. Keep up all the great work you're doing. I don't know if you ever do GoFundMe's or something, but definitely, if you got something, we'll tweet it out. I definitely.
Can I tell a quick GoFundMe story?
Go for it, man.
So about 2-3 years ago, that freshman class I was telling you about that was pretty good. Had 4 or 5 guys that were interested in playing college ball, weren't getting recruited, had pretty good grades, weren't good enough to play for any of the shoe company AAU teams. and couldn't.
Can you describe for those who might not know what the shoe company AAU teams are and how that works?
For instance, you have Team Lillard is sponsored by Adidas, and they play in the Adidas circuit against other Adidas teams, and pretty much you better have a roster full of, at the worst, high-level D2 players, D1 players, because that's what your marketing is, recruitability. And those teams are sponsored. They're not paying for travel. They're not paying for tournament fees. They're taken care of by the shoe companies, Under Armour, Nike. Then you have your independent teams that try to play on those circuits with maybe a lower caliber of player, or maybe one really good player that's at that caliber but prefers to play, with his friends or whatever. And then so these kids couldn't afford to play for these non-sponsored teams, which is a huge industry in itself. I could literally start the Redspin running kangaroos. And if I can find 50 kids whose parents want to pay, $3,000 a pop to chase their little hoop dream, I'm not going to turn them away, right? Little Jimmy's going to make it all the way. I just need to make sure this check cashes on time. Well, little Jimmy's 5'11", and he plays the power forward. But, I'm not going to tell you that. His high school coach is tripping. He's really a point guard or whatever it may be. So
right.
There's those teams, right? So a buddy of mine, he had his own 8th grade. He coached an 8th grade AAU team for his son with a bunch of local players, and he was thinking of starting a high school team. And so I kind of asked him, I was like, what do you charge? Because I don't want to kind of be part of that world. I'm not against it because there are some good programs, but he's kind of like, we basically just figure out how much we're going to spend and divide it by 10, and we got 10 players. I was like, I can do that. So I told my kids, it's like for a full season, 3 out-of-town overnight tournaments, about 9 tournaments overall, about $1,100, $1,200, affordable. I think between the 5 kids from Oakland High that played on that team, I might have collected about $600 total. Right. So, I did a GoFundMe, and, got some decent donations, posted it on Twitter, all, 72 of my followers and whatnot. And then I got a text from Dame, right? He's like, what do you need? Probably doesn't want this, publicized, but fuck it. What do you need? Like, we know, these kids are playing AAU, la 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 la. So I figured like when you played AAU, you had to fundraise, so these kids could fundraise, right? And then he calls me. He was like, "Motherfucker, they not fundraising, you are." What do you need? So when he put it like that, I was like, "Give me another week on this GoFundMe, and whatever I don't come up with, I'll call you back." Taking care of those kids. But it's like one of those things where we talk about the gentrification of sports. They're not the elite level where they're taken care of, but they also can't play for kind of those mid-level, the more prestigious local teams. So where do they end up?
No, that's all good points.
So being able to travel with those guys, get seen out of those 5. 1, 2, 3 of them are playing right, or would have been playing if it wasn't for COVID this year. The other one's a poet, and then the 4th one just going to school. I mean, the 5th one just going to school. But just giving those guys opportunities, and more so, I have a buddy that coaches AAU, and literally they're charging kids $4,000, not including travel.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it costs
falling all over themselves to pay it. So it leaves out the kids that can't afford it, And so you see more and more so of the top level elite players are the kids with resources.
Right.
And, if you don't have resources, you better be identified as 6'10", 7th grade, and resources will be presented to you. You're going to go to this private school, a shoe company is going to take care of you. But, if you're 5'11" in the 8th grade and don't have that $3, $4, $5,000 to pay to play out of town or play for one of these better non-shoe company teams, and then here's the whole racket. There's teams now that will sell their 17 and under team as an elite team, even though they're not sponsored. They'll field maybe 11 or 12 teams from like 5th grade on up to, whatever, and overcharge these kids. So sponsor their top team and give the impression that they're sponsored, and then use that influence to get maybe a partial deal with a shoe company. And then now they're telling them they're fully sponsored, and they're just kind of selling that dream, but it's really, 50, 60 kids sponsoring 7 or 8 on that top team.
Yeah. Coach, I feel you. So we got to bounce here soon, but I did want you to maybe just close on telling people a little bit about Juan Toscano Anderson, his story. I mean, I'm looking at undefeated here, 27-year-old going from trying out.
I think Mike's out now.
Starting yeah, it's all good. I know Mike's gone. Wait. Mike's there, right, on mine. But anyways, and now he's not. All right. But anyways, what was his story? I know he came to see Mexican American, I believe. And
Juan is half black, half Mexican. Mom's Mexican. Grew up in deep East Oakland. Played, ball all through, Oakland middle schools and all type of stuff. Ended up going to a high school in Castro Valley. Mom wanted him away from Oakland, which is, I wanted him at Oakland High. But he wanted to come to Oakland High, but, Mom is making that final word, and we're not going to go against Mom. Had a real good high school career. Played on the Oakland Rebels team that ended up becoming Team Lillard. He was 3 years younger than Dame. Went to Marquette, and that's the one thing I love about Buzz Williams, who's at Virginia Tech now.
Well, no, he actually is at Texas A&M now. They just hired him away with a massive contract, man. So, yeah. Well, I mean, with last year, I believe. I'll pull it up, but Buzz, he did a great job at Marquette and Virginia Tech, though. Yeah.
So Buzz, I mean, he and Juan didn't necessarily get along basketball wise for those 4 years, but most kids want to, envision themselves with a bigger role or whatnot. But to this day, Juan off the court has nothing but great things to say about Buzz, as far as his mentorship off the court, genuinely caring about his players. And I think there's a handful of those high-level D1 coaches that really do things the right way and are still successful. But anyway, graduated from Marquette, didn't really have any pro prospects. I think he might not have even officially declared for the NBA draft, knowing there's no way he was going to, make a team.
Yeah.
I think he was.
So just to let you know, Buzz got 6 years, $24 million to go to Texas A&M in 2019. So that's what got him out of Virginia Tech, man.
They're going to have a similar video with the new basketball stadium.
They're invested in that too. Texas A&M and Texas, not coincidentally, maybe coincidentally, but the Eyes of Texas, all that booster controversy, the racist stuff. But they were not just controversy, just straight up racist stuff. The boosters were saying and about players not wanting to stand up for that Eyes of Texas song. And then Texas A&M, it's the oil money in Texas, and then the big, kind of like Southern, the tech type gadget stuff, South by Southwest. So those are the two most profitable college athletic departments. Yeah. My bad, Coach. Go ahead and finish up.
Juan, I believe he was on his way to work a camp for a few dollars, and Buzz called him and was like, "Hey, do you mind going by your mom's name, because there's a chance you're gonna try out for the Mexican national team." And mind you, I don't think Juan really even learned, anything beyond like familial, conversational Spanish until he got to Mexico to play ball. So went to Mexico, played some years there, kind of rose up the ranks, and got to the point where he was kind of like, am I going to just try to scrape by playing internationally, or do I give it one last chance? And the kid that I was telling you about, Jabari Brown, that went to Missouri, he had just got done playing a couple of seasons for the Santa Cruz Warriors G League team in between his stints in China. And I guess he told coach, hey, one of my boys from my own neighborhood can play. He's not going to wow you with stats, but if you take a chance on him, you're going to win. He's good. And then he called Juan, and some stuff happened. I think he paid like $50 for a tryout spot with the G League Warriors. Ended up, not necessarily playing well on paper because he doesn't score a lot, but man, loudest guy in the gym, talking on defense, leadership, diving on the floor, plays hard, and he's got that, kind of Oakland dog, making the team, and does a couple years with the G League, and gets that call up. Gets the call up, does okay at the end of last year before the bubble, and then going into this year with the whole situation with COVID and the two-way players contracts changing, and the Warriors being so overspent on their contracts, it was like, hey, a guy that does all these little things that we don't have to pay a lot on a two-way contract. So, most two-way contract guys don't get playing time. He started about a third of the games so far this season. And, he's a fan favorite because he just plays so hard and is so unselfish,
Yeah.
And so hopefully he gets a nice guaranteed contract at the end of this year.
Definitely, man.
He's got a lot of guys pulling for him. He made some real good relationships when he was in Mexico, to the point where I was watching a Warriors game and the announcer just started making shit up. It's like, yeah, Juan Toscano's story is great. He grew up,
wow, humble origins, right?
grew up in Mexico and made his way to Oakland. And it's like, motherfucker, he was born in East Oakland.
It just shows how much they're dying for like the little narrative to be like, oh, he came up, and it's like it could probably even be with like a resistance liberal type dude would be like, oh, and Trump's wall was trying to get between his dreams or something. Before you know it, you're like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
You don't need that little extra tidbit. Like,
his story's legit enough, man.
His jersey number is 95 because he grew up on 95th Avenue.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that story is like good enough in itself. Like that whole he was born in
Justin,
great story.
Justin, you want to react to any of that real quick?
It's that I was unaware of his story. I admittedly, like, basketball is something that I used to love and stay up with as passionately as I do baseball and football. But the last few years, I don't know what's changed, but I mean, hearing a story like that, that's enough to bring someone back. You know what I mean? Like, now I there's a connection to that team. I mean, my basketball knowledge of the Warriors always just extended to, well, they were that team that won all those championships. Yeah. But that story, especially the announcer part, like just making shit up, like not knowing when like you said, his story, like you couldn't write that story any better. So it's the story to tell.
Like, he didn't really use his mom's name until he started playing in Mexico. So even all through the prep scene,
Juan Anderson.
He was Juan Anderson, and then he became Juan Toscano Anderson. So it's like, if you know him, not to discredit that, because his mom's family is super dope, but it's just funny because that's the part that's being played up because it's a storyline where it's like, how about just let the game speak for itself sometimes, because his game is so it's so fun to watch. He's like, they call him Baby Draymond.
Who basically does not try to score at all anymore. It's all about just getting other guys involved.
Like, both those guys can end up a game with like 4 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, dive on the floor like 9 times.
Yo, I got Draymond in fantasy hoops right now, man. He's been. I mean, I'm like destroying people in the assist category, bro. It's insane.
So Juan is one of my favorite guys. We went 0-3 against him in high school, but he's one of those guys. Like, I always give him crap when we talk, but then
they got away
immediately after talking crap. Then it's like, that's my guy.
Word.
He won't hesitate to remind us that we're 0-3 against him.
Yo, that's what's up, man. So, Coach, I really appreciate you hopping on. We're gonna have to bounce on the East Coast. I was delirious teaching today. My kids, man. I was up last night on This Is Revolution. They're just hitting 7:02 on the West, but I think we're gonna have to, Justin and I are gonna have to pack it in tonight. But we appreciate the hour, man. We spent a little bit more than an hour, and we'll have to do it again sometime. All right,
absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
All right, nice to meet you, Justin.
All right, well, take care, Coach.
Likewise.
All right, man.
All right, and appreciate all y'all being on tonight. All right, it was a great time. Always hit us up at Redspin Sports on Twitter.
We didn't get to all the questions, but don't worry. Next week when we're on, I think it was Joel. Don't worry, I will address the Russ thing. Don't worry, I got lots to say on that.
Let's. What was his question about Russell Wilson?
Oh, it's just is he out? Is he going to be
out of Seattle or not?
Yeah.
It's complicated. You don't think so, though?
Yeah. There's so much to say on it. He has so much control over where he goes and the 4 places that he wants to go. Like they don't have anything to give. Like I just don't know how it happens. I just don't know how it happens.
It's going to be one of those stalemate stare down ones, probably. But I don't know if the Seahawks want that. I mean, they got to try to do an olive branch to him at some point. This is our goodbye without saying goodbye.
Exactly.
We're really good. We're not that good at it. We're like, bye. We're like, oh man, Russell Wilson though.
Yeah, but like it's one of those things that like on top of that, what I don't understand like. I guess as a Seahawks fan, I mean, like so many Seahawks fans, the city was so electric for so long. And now it's just kind of like, okay, we won't win any more Super Bowls, but, I guess winning's good. Pete Ball's just played out. Like Pete Ball he's the oldest coach in the NFL. First of all, I have no love for the man. He loves Jordan Peterson. He loves
he's into all that like mystic, type like mythology and
but
hero's
still
journey.
with its fucking racist alt-right twist, like
really. He was known as a conspiracy theorist guy in the 60s. All I know is the narrative he was like into but
the fact that he like hangs out with Jordan Peterson.
Oh, that's fuck that.
He brought him to speak to the Seahawks a few years ago, shit like that. But anyway, that aside, I think that to hitch your wagon to the oldest coach in the NFL who came in, did a lot of good things, but really the Legion of Boom is the reason for so much of that. On top of the fact that, Marshawn, Russ, like it had a great team. Pete Carroll and John Schneider have never recaptured any of that since. They've drafted horribly. Like they still get this praise like they're the best head coach GM duo. And it's like, but literally outside of DK Metcalf, like who've they drafted? Like what was like early? All their early picks are bad. They get lucky later. Russ is the most sacked quarterback since 2012.
It's unbelievable.
They're lucky the fact that, like if people don't know that, he's never missed a start ever. He's never missed a play. He's never come out for like stinger, elbow, nothing. Like he's played it all, and that can't last forever. 31 years old, that time's going to run out on that. And their solution to this is literally to say, okay, then we'll throw less.
Yeah. I mean, it's terrible. It's like, I mean, how is it different? You see an analogy
he's
between
70,
that and
what is he, 71, 72 years old? Like, just retire. He can
Coach
retire.
Will, Coach Will, he's a Bay Area guy, right? From what I understand. I mean, Pete Carroll, he came up with the 49ers with Bill Walsh, and then he grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, actually. But, I know. It's like the fact that you as an organization are going to, like, hitch your wagon to a 72-year-old coach, one who's never going to, like, deserving or not, because I understand the logic. Like, as dumb as it was, you have to resist it. The Darren Bevel, not overruling Darren Bevel in the Super Bowl, but the idea was that, and it was true. It was such a phenomenal play by Butler, but they're going to be expecting a play and run so much. It's like they're going to come and stack the box. It's like that would have worked 9 out of 10 times, But it's still you give the ball to Marshawn, right?
it was a phenomenal play by Brandon Browner, who walked up to a rookie, in my opinion, still overrated cornerback, and Malcolm Butler, and said, no matter what happens, jump the slant, because Brandon Browner came
right from Seattle, right? Yeah.
and knew that was up the sleeve and literally told Malcolm Butler, jump the slant. Like, no matter what, they run the ball, jump the slant. Jump the slant even if you got to make a little bit of contact a little early.
But still, he drove on the ball right at the right time because he disguised it just enough to where Russ still felt comfortable throwing the ball.
Well, Russ never saw anybody because he stared that route down. Like, that's one mistake that Russ is also really good about owning, is that, I mean, he might as well, like, in his cadence, said who he was throwing to, because he never looked at a second option. He stared that down. I will say this: people forget this. Marshawn Lynch had 7 tries from the 1 that year. 7 tries from the 1 and 0 touchdowns. 7 tries, 0.
Well, from Oakland, like talk to Coach Will. I know we said
I love Marshawn, by the way. He's my favorite football player.
Yeah. So like the last,
I'm just saying.
All right, we'll keep this going for like 5 more minutes. That's it. All right, but so can you give it a fun? Remember the Marshawn Lynch driving the golf cart like shit? At Cal. You ever see that clip?
Yeah.
Like, can you tell us maybe like some of the stuff Marshawn's done, like just being around Oakland that maybe people don't know about, like in the community there that people know about on the streets?
Marshawn is just a super genuine person. And if he's cool with you, he's 100% cool with you.
Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't if he has any questions about your motives, it's an impenetrable wall. So I mean, he's hilarious, but he's not like uniquely hilarious.
Right.
You even see like stuff like Marcus Peters says. It's I don't think Marcus Peters is as witty as Marshawn. But like he'll say some just outlandishly hilarious stuff. You look at like your Gary Paytons and stuff like trash talk is just like not even trash talk, but just like that sharp tongue. Like I always say, like I am like a square Asian guy, but I'm a square Asian guy born in Oakland, raised in the Bay Area, and I can literally like go visit my friends in Boston, and just kind of my wittiness is a little bit different. And people kind of like have to try to figure out if I'm being like, disrespectful with my slick talk, or if I'm just like you hide your sarcasm, the language. Yeah, no, this is hilarious.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
His post game interview when they won the Silver Bowl in high school.
They are a legitimate bowl team.
Real quick, for context, this was at Cal Berkeley in the Bay Area, and like they beat Washington, and he just decides, man, I'm hopping on this cart and whipping this thing around. I just love the not giving a fuck mentality he had, and how like irreverent this is to people. Like, oh, that wasn't even the game was still going on. That was to get people hyped up, I think.
Well, time now for our Pontiac.
Yeah.
No, that was the end of the game. That my bad. That was the end of the game.
Pull up his interview in high school after they won the Silver Bowl.
All right. And then while I'm doing that, just want to give some context. So my good friend John Russell was playing with the Buffalo Bills on their practice squad in 2010. His locker was next to Marshawn's when he got traded from Buffalo to Seattle. And one of the reasons he got that mentality where he doesn't want to talk to the media is while he was in Buffalo, there were some people that he thought were real, he thought were genuine, to build on what Coach Will was saying, that liked him as a person. But then he realized from some of their reporting, the way they were like taking stuff out of like context and literally not just like saying that cliche type of way, and really just like making fun of him, like as if he's stupid because of like his dialect and stuff, and not realizing like who he actually is. So he got really jaded from that. And it made him just say, look, this is an industry. These cats are going to try to play nice and be cool to get access. But for them to rise up in their positions, then they got to find a way to slam you, to have a tweet that's going to take off and go viral, that's going to break something. And so ultimately he's like, look, real recognizes real. That Super Bowl press conference, people remember, it is what it is. So what's it called? The bowl, what bowl is it called? The
Silver Bowl. Silver Bowl. It's the championship game of the Oakland Public School League that they play on Thanksgiving. I think
while Nate's looking that up, I worked with him in my day job. I worked with Marshawn 3 times over the span of 5 years, and he has no reason to, know me, respect, things like that. But every single time I worked with him, he would go out of his way to say something that acknowledged that he remembered the last time that he worked with me. And it's little things like that, like assholes don't do that. Like good people do that. And he, just remarkable. And teaches financial literacy with incoming NFL players, which I think that a lot of people also don't know that he does.
I think one of the things I really respect about Marshawn is that he purposely chooses not to code switch. And a lot of, African American athletes feel that they need to be, to do the Michael Jordan speak to be accepted. And he's kind of like, I'm good. I'm going to go out of my way to speak extra Oakland.
Right, no doubt. That is mad respect for that. Here's the interview, though. You think you're talking about, Coach.
Bank presents the game of the week each week. You can go to CalHighSportsBayArea.com to vote on next week's game right now. Each team to receive $500
back in 2003, and if not, we're going to go to it right now.
You see,
here's Marshawn Lynch. This was at the Oakland Coliseum, I guess, after they won the Silver Bowl, right? Which is this state or is this like section regional?
It's the city championship.
City championship for Oakland. All right, at the Oakland Coliseum, former home of the Oakland Raiders, still home of the Oakland A's.
Our basketball players came out. They helped us a lot. Our linemen, oh my God! If my lineman wasn't so good, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And me being as broke as I am, I'm about to find a way to treat my linemen to Sizzling or wherever they want to go. I love this. I never had this. This is my first championship, and I've been playing football for I don't know how many years. You don't know how good this feels to me. And I want to thank everybody who did support me because I know there was people out there who doubted us, like everybody in the Oakland Tribune. That quote is a classic. You've seen it everywhere, but we shot it right here on this show. I shot it. I couldn't stop laughing behind the camera.
I know. We need to get another quote this year.
Yeah, with Marshawn. Come on down.
All right, it's Fremont and McClymon's.
All right, so that's that. Yeah, so I should have cut it off sooner. Nonetheless, exciting stuff there with your Bay Area little. I will just duo there, right, doing the highlights. But that was awesome, man. That really, there's a lot to chew on there, and I know we kind of need to wrap it up, man. But like it's obvious, man. You see the realness right there, man. I mean, any last words for real this time? Let's go around the horn. My last thing I'll say is just the things he pointed out about going to Sizzling. The fact that the NCAA would hear that and immediately look at something and think the worst, and that tells you all you need to know. That something as joyous, as like innocent as that is looked at in the NCAA's eyes, it'd be like potential, red flag. We got to look into this crap. We see Paul Robeson got blacklisted. Cancel culture is a flimsy imitation of McCarthyism and anti-communism. It absolutely is. Neil Sanger's on point with that. But Marshawn Lynch, mad respect. He's a people's champ in my book. Coach Will, you got last, and then Justin will wrap us up. I'm out for the night. Peace.
Peace. Good to be on.
All right. On that note.
Yeah. And Russ isn't going anywhere.
All right, Russ ain't going anywhere. So look, check us out if you got a chance on patreon.com/Redspin Sports. Any help would be awesome. I'm trying to grow that a little bit to help do these more often. Last thing I'll say too, at Redspin Sports on Twitter. Other than that, we'll be back next Wednesday night. I'll be interviewing. I'm supposed to do it today. I had something come up. Professor Derek White, author of Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Jake Gaither, Florida A&M and the History of Black College Football, the author, Professor Derek White, on Friday. So we should have that up sometime this weekend, Monday at the latest. So just some stuff to pay attention to. And anything else y'all want us to talk about in the future, definitely hit us up, and let's keep these conversations going. All right. Until then, we're out.
Peace out.